So parents, students, great to have you all here. My name is Utkarsh Amitabh, and I am the CEO of Network Capital. If some of you are familiar with who I am and what I do, you know that I care about why people do what they do. And the reason I said that I'm a big beneficiary as well as a victim of the education system is that if you look at my CV or if you look at my LinkedIn, it looks like a series of accomplishments. It looked like, I've literally gone to every school possible, gotten every degree imaginable, worked at companies that a lot of you might be familiar with. But the front of the CV often doesn't tell the complete story. It's obviously an important part of who I am, and one of the reasons many of you are here as part of this summer school is because you trust me and the Network Capital team to deliver you the larger experience. But what the illustrious, beautiful CV or LinkedIn often doesn't tell are the challenges and anxieties that a lot of students have to go through on a daily basis, whether it's in high school, whether it's in college, whether it's at the modern workplace, whether it's starting up, whether it's just scrolling through social media, observing people do all sorts of things. So in high school, right? In high school, I was primarily interested in theater, and I was very interested in sports as well. The challenge was that theater and sports both were undefined or unclear avenues when I was in high school. So I did what everybody did. I got into a top engineering school and I used my engineering degree, my first degree, as a sort of an insurance policy, saying that, okay, now that the anxieties of my parents and extended family have been allayed to a certain extent, now I can finally start doing what I really want to do. So I spent a lot of my undergrad years, engineering years, doing theater and playing sports, something that I really wanted to do in high school, but didn't find too much of the time. But I realized in engineering through debating and through theater that I became interested in a wide range of subjects, like how society functions, what is the role of politics and technology, should engineers be interested in poetry, should social scientists have an opinion on how decisions are taken on artificial intelligence policy of a particular country. These are questions that piqued my curiosity, but these were not questions that I had a ready answer for. And I used to resent myself for a long time for not knowing with precise clarity what I wanted to do with my life. But I kept doing well, and I started working in a consulting company. I enjoyed consulting. I was able to do pretty well there, but I still realized that my real passion was perhaps not consulting. It was perhaps education. For some strange reason, I thought I will enjoy being a teacher. And I had a few discussions with some of my mentors at that time, and they said that you should perhaps look at a literal change in the way you look at, making a difference in the education space. So what I did was that I started volunteering at Teach for India. It's a nonprofit organization, and working at Teach for India made me realize that, hey, education is something that I really care about. And lo and behold, I joined Teach for India full time, left consulting, had an amazing experience, really trying to understand what plagues the Indian education system at different education levels, at different income levels. And thereafter, I went and joined the Young India Fellowship as part of the Ashoka University. And it was the first cohort. Nobody knew what life was ahead, what the university would look like, what kind of problems would it solve. But it turned out to be a very important and one of the most intellectually stimulating years of my life. And if I try and answer that question now, it was because I was able to complement all the curiosities that I had developed during my engineering years, my high school years. And now I had 1 year dedicated truly in immersing myself in liberal arts. And that's what I did. So complementing liberal arts with my curiosities of the past and some of the skills that I picked up really helped me make sense of the world around, and also helped figure out what I really wanted to do. That's when I was about 24, 25 at that time. That's when the idea of network capital started emerging. I i started tinkering around what might an ideal education look like. What might a system where students and young professionals, what if they really wanted to do what they do? How would that change the world, or how would that shape the world? But I continued on my delayed gratification plan a bit more. I went on to study at INSEAD and Oxford and Wharton, worked at Microsoft for several years, and network capital as a passion project kept growing. What happened last year was that in the middle of the pandemic, after having worked in Microsoft for about 6.5 years after my MBA and Chevening Fellowship at Oxford, I realized that I really want to build network capital full time and dedicate my life to making a tangible difference in the way education is delivered in the country and more broadly around the world. So, what is network capital, and what was my starting thesis and where we are today? So, we started Network Capital with a very simple idea that everyone in the world, whether it's a young parent who's on this call, whether it's a student, whether it's myself, whether it's my team, everyone has something unique to learn and something unique to share. The challenge is that if you look at the education system, particularly in countries like India, it is fairly competitive. It forces you to believe that the only way I will win is if you lose, or the only way you will win is that if I lose. And what it does is that early on, it creates a disincentive to collaboration. Instead of trying to figure out ways to work with each other, we try and compete with each other and try and win the rat race. So I tried to visualize the opposite. What happened where instead of competition, you replace that by radical collaboration? And I started thinking, is it really an important force in the marketplace? And then I looked at my experiences working with the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, which some of you might be familiar with the other CEOs we've hosted on Network Capital, with the politicians, Nobel laureates, all of those folks. One thing that stands out about all of them is that they are first to acknowledge that they didn't get here by themselves. They worked with different kinds of people. There was lots of role of serendipity. There was a role of preparation. There was a role of network. And there was, most importantly, lots and lots and lots of collaboration at various levels going on. Okay. So if you read my book, The Seductive Illusion of Hard Work, which was published last year, there's a chapter on deep generalists. So deep generalists, I believe, are something that every high school student must aspire to be. Now, that high school student could be interested in astrophysics, or that person could be interested in theater or sports like myself, or in all of the above. But the principle of deep generalism is that for you to be able to learn deeply and think broadly, you need to work and collaborate with a wide set of people. And to be able to really learn from them, you need to sharpen a few skills that will equip you to do so. So what are these skills? These skills are, first and foremost, thinking critically. In today's world, if you just open up a newspaper, or if you tune into a TV channel, what do you observe? Let's invite some comments from parents and students who are there. When you read a newspaper, say the headline, or open a television channel, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Do you feel really peaceful after that? Who finds great peace in reading the newspaper or scrolling through the television channels?
I wouldn't say peace, just as a means of getting information more than peace.
Yeah. I mean, Anirudh, it's an interesting point. It's a means of giving information, but for you to really understand what the headings are, you need to understand the incentives behind those headings and the why they are structured the same way. There is a wonderful book which we'll study as part of this summer school. It's called Factfulness. It's by this doctor and statistician called Hans Rosling, who basically looks at the world in data. Has the happiness increased? Are we happier today than we were 20 years back? Are we are we more are we doing better in terms of poverty? Has the literacy rates increased? Has the gender ratio become slightly better? And based on that, he looks at newspaper headlines, what they conveyed, and what the data shows. So it emerges, Anirudh, and everybody else listening, that newspaper headlines are designed to confuse you. They're designed to make you believe what the editor or the writer wants you to believe. This is a definition of clickbait. So the reason why there's so much of polarization, at least one reason, is that we have all suspended our critical thinking skills. And if you don't fix your critical thinking early on, it's very difficult to go back and advance in the years and really think about important issues. So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is simply the ability to make logical inferences based on available facts. So, in today's world, Google and Bing have all the information in the world. You don't need to memorize too much. But for you to be able to make sense of the information, you need to sharpen your critical thinking skills regularly. So in the summer school, we will, of course, read books like Hans Rosling's The World in Data, but we will also study mental models in great detail. So who knows what mental models are? Just take a guess. What does it sound like? What might a mental model mean to you?
Explanation of a person's mind.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Let's invite other opinions as well. Great shot, Anirudh. Others, what do you think is a mental model?
It could be something like a simplified diagram or a model of how something works or how somebody thinks. A simplified version,
Yeah,
basically.
excellent. And
Or
Urvi and Anirudh have shared. Others?
could I say it could be just giving a context, giving I said a model to a context.
Context is really important. Who was this? Please identify yourself.
Hi, this is Shifali.
Yeah, Shefali talked about context. Great. What else?
Someone in the chat has said it could be thought information.
Thought information. Tell me more. Who was this?
Yes, it's me. Thought information meaning the information about how thought in other people's mind works and all of that stuff.
Awesome. So you're talking about psychology to some extent,
Yes.
I imagine.
Hi, could I also just add that models to form opinions, maybe? I'm Shifali again.
Yeah. I think these are all right, but basically, mental models are way you make sense of the world. There's too much happening in the world every day, and if we try and keep up with every single fact, every single insight, every single tweet, we will just end up burned, exhausted. Mental models help us make sense of the world. For you to be able to make logical inferences, you can't sit under an apple tree and wait for the insight to dawn. You need to be able to know what are the available time-tested frameworks that are at your disposal, that each of you can learn to think better, take better decisions. So, in my book, whoever has read it, there is a section on mental models. In the summer school, we're going to discuss each mental model in depth. And what all of you will graduate with is a strong understanding of which mental model is applicable when. For example, when you have a decision, should I go to college A or should I go to college B or should I not go to college at all? There are lots of incorrect emotional kind of ways to look at this problem. There are lots of FOMO driven, fear of missing out driven ways to look at it. But there is a thoughtful, intentional way where you can use facts, data, insights, feedback from other people, and arrive at the goal or arrive at the right set of answers. There are 40 mental models that are available, and think of them as your thought partners. With the help of these just 40 mental models, you will be able to make sense of most things, from the stock market to what's happening in the Bitcoin space, to why did Trump, when he used to tweet a certain way, why did he do that? To which college should you pursue? And what creates certain successful habits that lead to the kind of opportunities that one would have hoped for. All right. So when you look at this wide spectrum of opportunities that come to you, these 40 mental models are going to become your best friends, and you're all going to work in groups on live projects to see whether these mental models are actually working for you or not. You know, during writing the book, to figure out which models to include, which models to leave, we of course looked at information out there. But one thing that really struck me was that you need to be able to contextualize some of the ways the world works. Now, let me ask you a question and you tell me what you think of it. Suppose you have to decide the number of uh, important decisions that you have to take before you turn 25. What are the important goals for yourself by the time you're 25? On what basis should you set these goals? Let's hear it. So I'll tell you the incorrect way, and then I'm hoping that a lot of the students and their parents will tell me the right way. The incorrect way is to look at the most successful person you know on social media or your friends and try and copy what that person does. An incorrect way is to listen to your random neighbor's advice, saying that, oh, my son's daughter's aunt's uncle did this, so you should do this as well, because son's daughter's aunt's uncle know the best. Another incorrect way is to asking yourself, what is hot right now? Oh, everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. I also should know artificial intelligence. I think there's nothing wrong in knowing about artificial intelligence, but learning or deciding to focus on artificial intelligence because everyone tells you that it's hot right now is perhaps not going to end well. And early on, when I said that I'm a big beneficiary of all my degrees and my education and also a victim, is because, the further you postpone taking the decisions that you really need to take, the more you have to live with a certain amount of debilitating uncertainty. Somebody once told me that the success in life comes down to the number of difficult conversations you're willing to have. And for you to be able to have difficult conversations with other people, but most importantly with yourself, and think critically, these 40 mental models need to be your best friend. Now tell me, how might you figure out your goals for your 25-year-old self? What could be the starting question? There are no wrong answers. I mean, we're all listening.
Happiness, maybe?
Yes, Anirudh says happiness. What else? I saw something in the chat which talks about, what is it, Varya? Could you please read it out to me?
Importance of the goal.
Importance of the goal, happiness. What else? These are questions that you have to take. Yeah.
Your own passion, like
Your
what
own
you like to
passion,
do.
very important. What else?
Yeah, I think also going through some of the failure stories, successful
Failure
failure stories of the
stories.
people. Yeah.
Exactly. Failures, successes, passion, the other points mentioned. What else?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. These are factors that will help you arrive at your 25-year-old goal. However, the question is, how should you actually frame your 25-year-old goals? I found this question to be so hard because my goals kept changing. My passions kept changing. For some time, it was theater. Later, it became acting, on the stage and in front of the camera. Then it became sports. Then it became engineering to some time. Then management. Then education. Then liberal arts. Then business. Then technology. Then artificial intelligence. It is not a straightforward answer, is it? At least it wasn't for me. No matter what my CV tells you. Yes, Hassan.
Of course, yeah. Thanks, and I was about to comment as a father. I wish my son was with me to attend this session. He's at school right now, but anyway, as a father, I wanted to share a couple of points which I think it might be beneficial for other students who are willing to, you're asking very important questions, and I think as a father, there is always different way of doing things. There is no right or wrong, as you said, but there's different way of doing things. And one of the things that I always encourage my kids, to answer your question, is to always follow their passion. And as you said, this is in a revolving and evolving situation because it changes all the time. When my first kid was 5 years old, he wanted to be a pilot. When he was 7, he wanted to be a YouTuber. Now he thinks that he is a good writer and a movie director, and he want to follow his passion. So always create that space as a parent, create that platform, that space for them to follow their dreams. And a good message for the kids or the students and this exciting call is always follow your passion. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought, Hassan. Thanks so much for chiming in. Who agrees with Hassan? Who wants to build on it? Who disagrees with him?
I think that's a very lovely point that Hassan has put forward. But in Indian education system, like I'm living in Delhi, so in Indian education system, I think even if a kid wants to do something else, I'm talking here as a parent. So if even if a kid wants to do something else, but the system is like that the rote memorization and the exams, and also still I feel there is less of creativity. I still feel that's my opinion. I mean,
Yeah,
not in the education system in Delhi.
yeah,
I understand. That's why there is great initiative, just like Network Capital is growing in that part of the world. So I think we should always stick behind and give them the support needed.
yeah. Thanks, Hassan. Really appreciate that, and thanks so much for mentioning both two really important principles that we have to think about. They are not mental models, but they are what you call really important uh, subjects that we should all know about. Um, so if you look at my life, right, I was always, or at least for the most part, following my passion. In fact, if you've read my Harvard Business Review article, when should you leave your uh, uh, paycheck for your passion? I basically talk about why I left Microsoft and how did Network Capital transform from being a passion project to what I do full time today. So what you'll realize, at least in my case, is that passions do change over time, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Actually, if anything, it's a great thing. In many systems, there is a penalty. By the time you're 12 years old or 14, you need to know what you'll be at 40, or what you'll be at 50, or what you'll be at 30. And the truth of the matter is, it's impossible. When I was at Ashoka, I got into all masters in public policy and masters in public administration programs, and I was all set to go there. My visa had come. It was only towards the very, very, very last moment I got into some top MBA programs, and then I realized, what? The whole reason I'm doing a master's in public policy is because I think I will enjoy it. I've never really tested it out. I've never actually observed whether I really enjoy diving deep into policy issues, or do I prefer building it. So once I had both of my admission offers in hand, then I started actually conducting some micro experiments. That how do I like spending 24 hours a day? What kind of activities energize me? What kind of activities de-energize me? And I realized at that time, I was 25, that I enjoy building a lot more than regulating. Second, I realized that I love being a deep generalist. I love combining math with music, poetry with physics, community building with artificial intelligence, and all of these things. That's when I'm at my intellectual best. That's what energizes me. That doesn't need to be the case for you. But for me, when I realized that I'm basically a deep generalist who wants to build rather than regulate, who also is curious about policy, who likes policy, enjoys reading a lot about it. But my dominant instinct was that of a builder. And hence, I decided to pursue an MBA. Having conducted this micro experiments, worked, spent days taking up micro projects and tasks with mentors that I admired and people that I admired, gave me this clarity. Nobody else could have told me this. And because my passions kept evolving, I noticed that follow your passion is a really important advice, but you should replace follow your passion by follow your curiosity. And in my case, when I look back, I see that in the past 10 years, I have been following my passion. But again, the dominant instinct that I'm pursuing is that of curiosity, not passion. And I think all of us owe it to our children. I mean, I don't have children, but all of you, you owe it to your children. And I will owe it to when I have one. The fact of curiosity being a deep gift, of perhaps the most beautiful gift that you can gift your child. But what is the Indian education sector, or rather the emerging market education sector, and to some extent the global education sector doing? That is making FOMO, the fear of missing out, the dominant emotion. Because, oh, my neighbor's son's daughter, this, she's today an artificial intelligence engineer at Facebook, she's earning this much. You need to follow that. You cannot cloud somebody else's, or you can't follow somebody else's path, because each person, whether we like it or not, is unique. And the way we arrive at our moment where we find our ikigai, which is this beautiful Japanese phrase that I keep coming back to, which is at the intersection of who you are, what you love to do, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. The intersection of all of these things is ikigai, is the essence of unbridled curiosity. So follow your passion, but follow your curiosity even more, because curiosity will get you there. It'll enable you to get the micro experiments that you need to conduct with yourself, which nobody else can do for you, to make a logical inference about your 25-year-old self. In my team, like I am close to 30, but Varya, like she's a Gen Z, a few years older than you all. I think she's 22. Urvi, she's come on board with us recently. She's, I believe, in her first year in college. I imagine she would be in her teens. So these are people just like, few years apart. So what I explored or developed or discovered about some of these insights is that when we are trying to look at curiosity, right, or when we look at the creativity, which I think another parent mentioned, we need to be careful of not standardizing curiosity or standardizing creativity. And I discovered that if any of you have watched my TED talk, I'm requesting Varya and Urvi to keep sharing the links in the chat so that the parents and students can keep a note of it for later. So I talk about when you go to a school and you ask a child to draw something just randomly. I've done this experiment hundreds of times, from countries like Moldova to countries like Eritrea to countries like Lebanon, India, so on and so forth, US, UK, France. What does a child draw? Do you want to guess? A mountain, sun, river flowing from the mountain, green grass, and a family sitting there and having picnic. Does that ring a bell? Have you seen that picture? Do you know what photograph or the drawing that I'm talking about? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes.
I think that's what we used to do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Like even in like not kindergarten, like first grade or second grade, the mountains with the sunrise, like the river
Absolutely.
flowing.
Do you understand how dangerous this is?
It's
You
one
cannot,
standardized thing.
yeah,
Like
for
this.
creativity, for the same point that I think you only, if my audio recollection is right, I think you were the person who talked about creativity, right? If we standardize creativity, which formal-based learning does, you basically are not really producing creativity. You are doing the opposite of creativity. You're actually standardizing stuff and telling your students that, hey, this is a colorful painting. You should be happy about it. That's not the child that the world needs. That's not the child that you want to owe it to yourself. You want your child to have the skill to invert the rainbow, to flip the stream, and to make the mountain in any color he or she deems possible. Or why mountain? Why not something else? So these are the things you try to get to once you really dive deep into the things that drive your action. So curiosity is a really important pillar for us. Creativity is super important. And I think passion and purpose. Passion is an important word. Hassan talked about it. But purpose is equally important. If you remember the third element of my Ikigai circle that I talked about, it was what the world needs. All right. Now, what the world needs is as much an economic question as it is a social question, as it is a technological question, and as it is a relevant for your college applications. It is equally relevant for where you decide to work, where you decide to study, what you decide to do. Because when you look at multi-aged groups, when I was talking about the ages of different people in the team, what I meant was that different people or different age groups bring different ways of looking at a particular problem. And to enhance your creativity, you want different age groups, different nationalities, different cultures to work together for what the world needs. And I think if you go back to the starting point, critical thinking skills and how you really enhance it, you need to be able to really make sense of what moves the needle and what doesn't move the needle. On network capital, we call it the difference between signal and noise. Now, I think the most important decision for everyone in high school and college and largely throughout the life is to figure out what problems need you the most, which set of people need you the most, and how might you serve them. So the summer school will actually start with answering these questions. Which problems need you the most? Which people need you the most? And how might you serve them? So just a few days back, we recorded a brilliant masterclass with somebody who will also teach as part of the summer school. She's a Knight Hennessy scholar at Stanford, and she decided that her work will be focused on, or her contribution to the world would be making the world more gender neutral or gender democratic. She figured out public health was the way to go about it. So, she's dedicated her life to working on that problem, her curiosity. And working on that curiosity with the right set of people has taken her from meeting the Queen to having Meghan Markle come and work in, like, check out her factories, to getting this Knight Hennessy scholarship at Stanford. I want you to not get distracted by all the funky things that I've told you in the last 30 seconds, the Queen of England, Knight Hennessy scholars, and this and that, but rather on the problem that she chose. If you, once you watch that masterclass and once you listen to her story, you will realize that the most successful people in the world tend to be those who figure out a unique way to serve others. The people who choose the most technologically optimum way end up becoming entrepreneurs. Those who choose the economically most viable way again, also end up as entrepreneurs. Those who are interested in figuring out the systems that will make for the most interesting change become social scientists. Those who want to balance a bit of both dabble in social entrepreneurship. Those who want to fund the platform or create the bridge become investors. Those who want to write about this entire system that's going on, they become writers, poets. And then there are some who'll question the premise of all of this is happening, become activists. And all of these professions are really important in the 21st century, no matter what you choose to do. Okay. The reason they're important is that we all have a very important cognitive bias that keeps distracting us. And that bias is called herd mentality. We tend to do something which is a mental model called group think, which is that if I decide to sit like this and give you a lecture, and if people start sitting like this and giving lectures to students, maybe people will think that, oh, maybe this is a new norm, this is how they need to behave. There are loads and loads of experiments conducted your way to talk about groupthink. But for you to be able to vary of this groupthink or not fall prey to it, you need to be able to, figure out what path truly works for you and what path you need to avoid. I don't want all your children to become, Google engineers or Knight Hennessy professors or top shot INSEAD grads who are McKinsey partners. I want each of your children to build their category of one. That's another Harvard Business Review article I wrote before leaving Microsoft, was how to build your category of one. I think we live in really confusing times, whether you're a parent, whether you're a student. It's very difficult to not succumb to groupthink and enroll for a FOMO-based program available online. But for you to be able to step out and really immerse yourself in building your category of one lies in close synergy to what I told you about. Which problems need you the most, which people need you the most, and how might you serve them? Be a giver. Category of one is going to be an important component of this summer school. You're all going to write an article, which we will publish on our website, about what you, a school student, wants to do to build his or her category of one. Writing proved to be one of the most important skill sets that I've picked up. Some of it, I have to confess, comes naturally to me. My mom is a pretty famous writer. She'll be teaching a course in the summer school as well. But I've learned tremendously from her. And one of the things or a childhood memory of mine was just sitting and discussing poetry and my mom's writing with her. And that particular process of trying to deconstruct it and write it, helped me in so many ways. So I've thought that, okay, I should get my mom, who did that with me, and my brother to do that with all of you. And in that particular exercise, we will write our life map. Okay. It's impossible to know the future. In fact, if you can predict the future, you're living a boring life. I don't want any of you to live a boring life. But there is importance in just thinking, knowing what you know today, what might you be doing 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and so forth, to be able to really project your future, knowing what you know today. It's a hard exercise, but I'll have my mom, Dr. Anamika, sort of curate and walk you through this entire process. And just to conclude this particular section of the discussion, look, careers, curiosity, passion, these are not just questions that you will have to answer today. These questions will be very important when you actually start working at the Microsofts, Googles, and Goldman Sachs of the world. Because that's going to be your competitive edge. That's the kind of questions children should ask, but they don't. Instead, they keep memorizing facts and making standardized posters, which are actually not particularly creative. The whole reason you're all here I think, is to build your category of one. There will be many tangible benefits to building your category of one. It will most likely be an important factor of your college application, as and when you decide to apply. You will graduate with a strong network of young students who are also curious and anti-FOMO. The parents will also get an opportunity to collaborate with other parents. All of you, I would imagine, would be mid-career or mid-career professionals if you have young kids. And for you all, you can form your parallel community, a network capital parents community, where you can all discuss, of course, parenting should you like, but also each other's career. So I see the summer school as a start of a long-term journey where we will ask basic questions, look at mental models, learn to write, learn to speak, learn to think critically, and then at the end of it, also form a community that will hopefully last a lifetime. Look at ways to add value to each other, look at values to serve each other. We are going to keep the cohort small and intimate. In one particular class, we will not admit more than 20 students. So anybody who's participated in a network capital fellowship or as a subscriber knows that we make our experiences fairly immersive. And our philosophy is that we will do it right for 20 rather than do it wrong for 2000. So please see this as a start of a multi-year journey that we'll all embark together. I just want to add a little bit more about the college aspect because I know short term is also important, and many of you who want to think about college should be aware of things that, or at least the way a lot of colleges want. What do they really ask for? So all colleges largely are interested in people who are strong achievers. They don't necessarily need to be academic achievers, strong achievers who've done interesting things with really meaningful leadership potential. What it comes down to is that if your candidature, if your application sounds like the application of 20 other people, that means you're probably not doing it right, which means that the game that you're trying to game or the game that your counselor, the school paid for it, perhaps trying to game is not going to, again, end well for you. So even for your college applications, you want to write about stuff where you really demonstrated original thinking, community building, strong leadership, figuring out ways to serve. And when you've done this consistently for some time, your college application will write itself. And I'm not in any way suggesting that you should keep college at the back of your mind while coming to the summer school. Although even if that is your goal, you will perhaps benefit tremendously from it because the people who will be teaching classes are people who have degrees from distinguished institutions around the world, the absolute best. The mentors and professors who will be teaching are people who got a lot of these awards. Many times they are the people who are the most distinguished faculty of various universities. And a lot of it comes down to understanding your network. And I want this summer school to be a start of that curiosity, that community, and that tangible career advancement that all of us need to do all the time, but with a war on FOMO. Throughout summer school, for the 20 children that we actually take, we will just make sure that there is a joy of learning, there's a joy of grasping important concepts that really shape the way for a world where in the 21st century, we move on and shape careers that really make a difference to ourselves, to our families, to our friends, and also to the world around. Let me pause for a few seconds before I give you a snapshot of our career track, which will be the last component of the summer school. So any questions that any of you have, please feel free to ask it right now or put it in the chat. I would prefer if you ask me. I like to see the names and faces of people. Because in the summer school, you will need to participate. You can't wait and sit in the corner. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, we will figure out a way to make you feel included.
Uh, Hi, I have a query. This is Shifali again. I have a
Yeah,
query that my child is 10 years old. So I was
yeah.
just going through all the conversation. I was just thinking, is it too early for her to join this summer school, or do you think it's appropriate?
I think
What's it?
is it a girl or a boy?
Yeah, it's a girl. She.
Okay, lovely. It's a she. So I was just sorry. I was just making sure I didn't mishear it. So I think she should absolutely join the summer school. And the reason, again, I told you the ages of the people who work at Network Capital is this. Uh, I'm close to 30. Varya is 22. I believe Urvi is 17 or 18. And the person before them was around 23, 24. And there was another person who was, who's actually on this call, Bhanu, who was the fellowship director of product management. I believe he's in his 40s. And the reason we are discussing people's ages, it's weird, is that we are embarking upon a world where people of different age groups have to learn to work with each other. They don't necessarily need to, be like each other, but this multi-age collaboration needs to be done. I think your daughter will be a huge beneficiary of learning across age groups. But I want to emphasize that there are many other 10-year-olds. So she'll not be the only one. And those who are 16 or 15 or 17, there are many other 17-year-olds. And in the summer school, we are going to take multiple batches as well. So we're going to put you in age brackets where you feel most at home. So if your daughter prefers to be with more 10-year-olds, we will put her in the batch of 20 where there are more 10-year-olds. Although if you ask me, um, my mom and dad at that time used to, when I was in junior school, they used to work in different cities. I would often go with my mom to her university where she used to teach at the time. Um, and I benefited tremendously from actually hanging around in the staff rooms and listening to the stories of academics and so on and so forth. I was just exposed to a very different kind of world all around. And I became friends with college friends when I was, like 3, 4 years old. And some of those skills, like in hindsight, it makes a lot more sense. At that time, less so. You want to expose your child to different age groups. Learning should be done ideally with people of a similar age group, but collaboration and working, like a 30-year-old with a 20-year-old working on a shared vision in the same company, that I think is a good thing. So the way we should do is that we should put her in a learning class of more 10, 12-year-olds, and same for 16, 17-year-olds. But when it comes to working, it'll be really interesting because, in a real company of today, what does a company look like? Today, a 25-year-old, a 27-year-old is a CEO. There is a VP of sales who's 45. There is a legal counsel who's 55. And then there is this head of social media who's 18. And then there is the head of product who's 23. So this is like, this whole age demographic is quite unsettling. Real organizations of today are not split by age groups. So if you look at and go and study at the history of schools, history of how schools came into picture, my TED talk also has a section on it. You will realize that schools were built exactly like factories were built. Okay. And the way you structure a factory is the way many schools have changed. The irony is that factories have changed, but schools haven't. By putting a fancy, colorful wall or a video conferencing infrastructure, that doesn't really change a school if the pedagogy is the same. So, long answer to a short question, but put her in the learning module of more 10-year-olds, but absolutely don't make her miss this summer school. I think she'll enjoy it.
Thank you.
So one point I can add. I think Shifali, she's the one asking the question. So my kid, he's 10 years old too, and one of the reasons I want him to join this group is that I want, in a way or another, disrupt the idea of packing his school bag every day and going to school and learning the same stuff with his age groups. I'm not saying this is wrong, but I want to disrupt this learning methodology and expose him to different age groups, which in a way or another, it will enrich his understanding of how the corporate world is going to look like. As you know, Utkarsh was saying, it is a fact, it is real world that we are living in today. And the age group is not an important factor anymore as it used to be, as opposed to traditional way of teaching or schooling. So that's just a comment on the subject.
What's your child's name? I'll keep an eye out on
Mohammed Noor Jaber. Mohammed Noor.
Awesome. And another vision of mine is that many of you come from so many different countries. I really want you all parents to have independent relationship with other parents. I think it's so important. As I understand, again, no, not an expert in parenting, but as I understand that parenting can also be a fairly challenging, sometimes lonely process. And many times you all need thought partners. So one thing that we want to do is to have a Shefali meet with a Khalid, meet with a Muhammad, meet with a Rick in Australia and all of that. And Bhanu in Bangalore, Advait in Lucknow, wherever, so that you can all parallelly vein. Our company is likes to keep things completely open. So your inputs and your suggestions are going to be most welcome. I want you all to have parallel independent relationships with each other. And I want your kids to have parallel independent relationships with each other. I want Network Capital to have independent relationship with your kids, and Network Capital to have independent relationship with the parents as well. One thing which I don't want too much of is that I don't want you to put any pressure on your children about what they should be learning and what they shouldn't be learning. Your input is valid, but for the period of the summer school, please do not feel the need to intervene too much. Super.
Sounds good.
Lovely. So I want to touch upon the last section, which is the career track. But if there's any last question on what we've covered so far, I'll wait for 5 seconds and then go on to the last point.
Quickly, just a quick question. In terms of the deliverables of this program, if you can just, I know you have mentioned a few points while you're taking us through the deliverable. If you can just re-stress on, I think you guys have highlighted 3 points. One of them was writing an article or helping writing an article down, and the other one is a TED Talk. If you can just throw more light on those 2 aspects.
Sure.
That would be cool.
And that was precisely what I was coming to, Hassan. Thanks for asking. So what is the career track? What is the last week in the summer school going to look like? Look, I also understand that admissions and applications are competitive. We also understand that opportunities for students to take up projects and internships are limited. But the good thing is that Network Capital, by definition, Network Capital has the network of everyone in the world, right? We do have a fairly large network, many of whom have trusted us from the beginning. So we want to spend the last week just giving your children exposure to all sorts of careers, in a quick fix fashion, where you will see, oh, this is what being a poet really looks like. This is what poets do. This is what an astrophysicist does. We won't be able to cover 100 people, but we will give a meaningful snapshot and connect what we have taught in the school in the first 3 weeks with the last week, which is that learning and talent meets opportunity. So that career track would be exposing to internships, jobs, prospective project. These things will turn out to be pretty handy in your college anytime you decide to apply. Whether you're 10-year-old, 16-year-old, you should get into the habit of working and taking up things that interest you alongside. So the last 7 days, we're going to be focused on that. Now, why is this important? Why are we doing this? Because we don't want this program to, for you to graduate feeling that, one important aspect of career anxiety, career strategy has not been addressed. Even in the summer school, we want to give you the full-fledged flavor. You want to hear from the CXO of Google and CXO of Microsoft, you got it. You want to hear from the biggest investor in Europe, you got it. And that you will probably not understand understand every bit of what he or she is talking about. But as a student, you should know that, oh, what I studied in school, the mental model of, say, herd mentality, is something that the biggest investor also talks about, because the investors make the same mistake as kids do. And that's why you will be able to put your theory into practice. In terms of graduating assignments, it's very simple. We want all of you to publish an article, deliver a TED talk, and read some of the foundational material. This publishing an article and delivering a micro TED talk is something that we've done previously. So we have a public speaking fellowship for young professionals, basically parents like you and I, not you, not I. And in that public speaking fellowship, the graduating assignment for our fellows was, you'll see it in the links, was giving a micro version of a TED talk. We want your children to basically tell us what piqued their curiosity and what drove their creativity in that process. If they were to be put on stage tomorrow, what would they do? It'll be super fun to hear, like, 20 kids, depending on which cohort your kid goes to, graduate and deliver a talk. It'll be a super proud moment for you, I can imagine. And publishing an article as well. Again, for admissions, but more importantly for life, writing is the most critical skill. You cannot succeed unless and until you've mastered the art of writing. You know, one of the joys of working at Microsoft also was to read the emails of the CEO, Satya Nadella. He writes beautifully. And of course, there's a communication team to help him to some aspects of it. But because I've met him in Davos and worked with him a little bit, I know that a lot of it is his. And if you read his book, Hit Refresh, I've written, again, an analysis on that. You'll notice that the way he thinks is a great combination of an engineer meeting a poet. And I want you all to be able to explain complex ideas in simple words. And it's a lifelong journey. The summer school is the first of the many steps we will take together. Here is my vision. I want your children to come on board with us for one summer school, hopefully enjoy so much and benefit from it so much in tangible and intangible ways that they come back for the winter school. When they go to college, they join the Network Capital city-based chapters, wherever they decide to go. We are there from Oxford to Odisha, everywhere. And once your kids graduate from college and are thinking of masters, Network Capital is still there. When they want to advance from their masters to their jobs, transition to a different sector. So basically, we are building a career advancement community for life. And this cannot happen when you are 30. You can't start on this journey when you're 30. In the 21st century, the most important skill is the ability to reinvent yourself. And the sooner you learn that, the easier your life is going to be. I see 21st century careers as a spectrum of alternate careers. Many of you want to be YouTubers. Many of you want to be Instagrammers. But what I know for a fact is that these will not just be YouTubers. These will be doctors who are also YouTubers, political scientists who also have an amazing TikTok account, people who study Instagram and the spread of political movements. And this kind of a career, which is, largely driven by curiosity and combines different skills, combines different strands, is a meaningful career. Now, do I know that all of you will become super successful CEOs and change the world? Well, I hope so. But I think the purpose of life is not getting obsessed with the outcome, but to get the process right, at least to do it to the best of your ability. Which is why we're doing the summer school, folks. We want you to immerse yourself and your child in exploring a world of wonder and a world of knowledge, but which is also connected to the practical realities of the way we all function. I'm really excited to welcome all of you to this, or 20 of you to the summer school. And let me know if you have any questions. I get thousands of emails a day, but if any of you have a question, just put summer school in the subject line, and I'll make sure that I figure out time to answer your question. Utkarsh at networkcapital.tv is my ID. And the link to register for the summer school is going to be emailed to you. And my colleague Varya, who's the VP of product, a very mature 22-year-old, she's going to be sending you the link to register. I think you all have it, and it'll be there in your email as well. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to let you all go and enjoy Holi, physically distant or however else you deem appropriate. But I wish you all health, wealth, and dollops of curiosity. Thanks for your time, and see you very soon. Any last questions? I'm happy to take them.
What exactly is a CXO?
A CXO basically is a term used for CEOs, CFOs, chief community officers, and chief operating officers. So basically, they could. Have you heard the word C-suite? So when any title with a C on it, again, like I don't care about the title, but some of the most interesting people, I want you all to listen to them and relate with them. Oh, this is what the CEO, CFO, CXO, COO looks like. And we'll also make you meet some amazing chief community officers. One 21st century skill that nobody talks about enough is the ability to build and scale communities. And I'll make you meet one super interesting chief community officer. All right. Well, thank you all for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And this was very meaningful for me. And I hope it was for you as well. Thank you very much. Bye. Take care.